look at this delicious homemade lo mein. Guess how much all the ingredients cost? $117. People love to say, oh, you should cook at home. It's cheaper, it's healthier, it's better. But DoorDash takes 3 minutes of scrolling, $17, and gets other professionals to do the hard work. How does cooking make any sense? That's what I thought every time I'd shop for a recipe, until I dug a little deeper. What separates amateur home cooks from grandma's slinging family recipes or Michelin star chefs creating flavor on a tight budget? Well, there are 3 levels of food knowledge that build off each other to make it worth it. Level 1 is the recipe, and like all recipes, it starts with prep. Step 1, we want to find the direction of the muscle fiber in our steak. It's going this way, so we cut across. Why? Look at this. This is with across, and for science, we'll cut with, across, with, across. What looks more tender? There's a very easy way to remember this. In a bad marriage, you sit across from your partner during the legal arbitration because your marriage is falling apart. Step 2 is a weird one because you're not washing for sanitation. When you wring your meat out like laundry, the water helps wash out some of the impurities while the mechanical motion of the hand helps loosen the muscle fibers even more. And then pat it dry. And finally, step 3. This is a restaurant quality process that ties it all together, and it's called velveting. The key ingredient behind velveting is baking soda. Baking soda causes a chemical reaction which tenderizes the beef. So when it hits the hot oil, it actually stays loose instead of seizing up. And the other key ingredient is cornstarch. It creates this protective layer around the beef to keep the moisture in. And all the other ingredients I added, that's just to build up that sweet and savory flavor profile for the marinade. And in 15 to 60 minutes, we're gonna have something as tender as veal without those disgusting moral implications. I'm bantering. Now it's time to chop the vegetables. The main theme here is what cooks the same looks the same. Since we're gonna cook the carrot, the cabbage, and the onion together, and we want to retain their texture, cut them up into similar sized matchsticks. Now for the garlic and ginger, we want something else. The goal here is to infuse their flavor throughout the dish, so chop them very finely. At home, you're never mindlessly chopping. The form of the ingredient should always follow its function. Time to make a sauce. In reality, all you need is just soy sauce and sugar. Because at its core, lo mein sauce is just sweet and savory. So how can we boost that? To improve the savory element, add oyster sauce. For some more interesting complex sweetness, there's cooking wine. Flavor's not just about taste. It incorporates experience through colors and textures. To avoid pale lo mein noodles, we'll add dark soy sauce. To avoid the sauce not coating the noodle, we'll add cornstarch. Speaking of the noodles, cook them, toss them, and just let them dry. We're done. Now the fun part. The essence of this dish is high heat. That's why I preheated this wok for 5 minutes. The first coat of oil creates a non-stick layer. The second coat is for frying. The beef needs to sit for a little to develop that color. And whoops, see that water? That's why we should have cooked it in 2 batches. But also, do you want to cook it in 2 batches? In European cuisine, aside from not tipping or riding bikes, you keep the heat medium to low. This is so the vegetables can melt away into the background of the dish. But this is not the case. We want the high heat to create a sear on the vegetable, to keep the crunch but introduce a char, almost like cooking a rare steak. The high heat heavily impacts the ginger and garlic. We have to move it through the oil quickly to keep it from burning. But when we add the noodles into the pan, their mass actually draws the heat out to safer ginger and garlic levels. Continue to stir fry everything for a couple more minutes, and then add back the rest of the ingredients. Because I'm in my rental apartment with a normal stove instead of a Chinese commercial kitchen with a jet engine, the stir fry process is going to take a couple more minutes to get up to temperature and for the ingredients to fry up together. After a couple minutes, pour the sauce around the edges of the pan. This way it sears on its way down. See the color? That's the dark soy sauce. I like my noodles on the drier side, so I cook the sauce down a little bit more. But when you get your consistency, just kill the heat. And this is the cherry on top. Green scallions and bean sprouts to bring back the pops of freshness. And I gotta be honest, for $100 spent on a bowl of noodles, that is a great bowl of noodles. And if we make it 100 more times, the average cost per dish will go down to $9, and it would make home cooking finally worth it. Why would anybody want to do that? I'll bet you money, you've probably never stopped and asked yourself, what is a recipe? Aside from, oh, it's a specific structured set of ingredients and steps that give you directions. So what is a recipe? A recipe is a technique that iterates over a specific set of ingredients. In the lo mein, we have the specific set of ingredients, but the technique is a stir fry. Why is this important? It's important because the technique is a pattern. And once we understand the function of every ingredient, we can learn how to apply this pattern elsewhere. So here is the power of patterns. I'm gonna convince you that lo mein and fried rice are basically the same thing. Same technique, different ingredients. Remember we started our lo mein with beef. That was our protein. What happens when we swap the protein? Let's do eggs instead. Scramble the eggs. After a good scramble, remove them. It's time for the vegetables. For the lo mein, we used carrots, cabbage, and onions, but we're gonna swap that. I ran out of cabbage, honestly. And I also did a finer dice because this more closely resembles the shape of rice, and this creates a better eating experience. Notice how I added in both ginger and garlic, kept it the same. Ginger and garlic is a goated combination. There's really no need to mess with it. When everything comes back to temperature, it's time to add the starches, which is rice instead of noodles. Shocker, we're making fried rice. After some chefy tosses, it's time to think about the sauce. We don't need those bells and whistles of lo mein. We just need good old soy sauce for that rich umami flavor. I poured it around the edge of the pan again so it sears on its way down to create a deeper flavor. Just like in the lo mein, we're gonna add freshness back to the dish with scallion greens because we cooked out all the freshness from the vegetables. And look at that. Literally the same technique, slightly different ingredients. And we have this gorgeous fried rice. Big recipe, and the government, they don't want you to notice the pattern. They don't want you to see it. So here's another example of it. We're gonna start off very similarly to the lo mein, literally the same marinade for the beef. Cook it up and remove it when it's nice and brown. Now it's time for the vegetables. What are we gonna do? So I ran out of onions, carrots, and cabbage. So I'm gonna skip that and just do the ginger and garlic. Goated combination, cook that up and add the beef back in. Just kidding. I had broccoli, but I microwaved it. I didn't cook it in the wok. See how there's a little too much water in the pan? Yeah, make sure you dry everything before you throw it in. I'm not cooking for anyone, and I have low standards, so I don't care, it's home cooking. Now that everything's fried up, it's time for the sauce, and the sauce is identical to the lo mein sauce with a little more water and cornstarch. That's because I want a saucier dish with a thicker sauce. Reduce it down to concentrate that flavor, and add in those fresh scallion greens to kiss it with a little flavor at the end. And there we go, the pattern persists. We have beef and broccoli, similar to what you could find at a takeout spot. Is it authentic? I don't know, take a look at who's cooking it. Now the question starts to shift from how do I use oyster sauce and soy sauce to oyster sauce and soy sauce are synonymous with stir fries. What else can I stir fry with them? Congrats, instead of making a lo mein 100 times, you can make a stir fry 100 times. So does that make spending $100 on a lo mein worth it? Well, it gets even deeper. Now, we've hit rock bottom. If recipes sit on top of techniques, what do techniques sit on top of? Let's take a step back. Have you ever noticed how every single recipe has you frying an onion? Have you ever wondered why? Is it because Big Onion has infiltrated our kitchens right under our nose? Or is it because cooking generally follows a 3-step process? 1, creating a flavor base. 2, adding what you're flavoring. And 3, adding those finishing touches. I know, it sounds very rudimentary and basic, but it applies to sauces, salads, stews, steaks, pastas, and even, God forbid, salads. Let's look into each step. 1, creating a flavor base always involves manipulating aromatic ingredients, like onions, celery, and carrots. Those are the three big ones, mirepoix. If you ever cooked Italian or French, you've probably seen that. But also, in this category, we can include garlic, ginger, scallions, and chilies. These are ingredients that are rich in flavor that you manipulate through simmering, sauteing, slicing, mashing, crushing, blending. They're there to give flavor. Step 2 would be those hearty ingredients. Ingredients that are heavy in sustenance, but not necessarily heavy in flavor. Like meat and potatoes, classic example, or pasta. No one's ever like, ooh, that pasta noodle added a lot to that chimichurri. No, it gets flavored. And step 3 is adding those finishing touches. These are delicate ingredients. Ingredients that don't really do heat or time well. They have that ephemeral taste and texture, but they're there to enhance your dish. If you have a mac and cheese that's soft and creamy, enhance it with some crispy breadcrumbs. If you have fish and chips that's light, fluffy, and fried in a beautiful batter, a little squeeze of lemon juice. Or if you have a gorgeous bolognese sauce that's rich and stewed for hours, add a little parsley at the end. I mean, that's it. Super simple, 3 steps. But how does it hold up in soup? Any soup worth talking about always starts with a good broth. For my broth, I'm making a chicken dashi. The body of it is 3 things: water, chicken, and kombu. Kombu's the only finicky part because it can taste bitter when boiled. So I just steeped it like tea for 30 minutes. This is basic, stable, borderline boring. Let's change that. Let's start our flavor base with ginger and garlic. Oh man, what a power couple. To spice it up with an alternative lifestyle, let's add in the scallions. And now, because I like feet, because the gelatin connective tissues dissolve, make the body... Oh look, it's time to reduce the heat and simmer. The soup needs a protein, so I'm making meatballs, but first let's build a flavor base. For our aromatics, we'll use onions, scallions, and ginger. I'm lazy, so I'm blending it up. Here's the ground chicken, I'll make up the body of the meatball, and there's our aromatic paste. But you know, we can always push our flavor base a little deeper. So I'm adding salt, soy sauce for umami, cooking wine for that sweetness and acidity, and finally a little heat from the white pepper. Just ground up onions and ground chicken can be pretty crumbly. So to help it all bind together and actually make it, a meatball, I'm adding cornstarch and eggs. The soup we're making is called a chankonabe. It's a rugged, honest-to-God hot pot that's fueled sumo champions for centuries. It starts with layering in sliced, vitamin-rich vegetables. Next, we layer in the mushrooms. These are called wood ears, which freakishly have the same texture as an ear. But wait a minute, hear me out. They're good. Because it's a hot pot, we're adding the chicken raw. Between you and me, we could have added a little more eggs and flour, but hey, we can't change the past. We can only react to it. And finally, to fill that insatiable void inside of us, let's add a nub of ginger, a little salt, and some soy sauce to bump up that flavor. Cover it and boil it for 12 to 15 minutes. Balancing, maintaining the texture of the vegetables without becoming a salmonella Sally. Oh, come on. Look at this. This is a meal. It's hearty. It makes you want to pick up a hammer. And finally, that last step that hasn't shown up at all. We're gonna finish the dish. The scallion greens are fresh. They're delicate. But we would have lost that flavor if we nuked them with high heat. See, instead of iterating the ingredient, we iterate the technique. Instead of a stir fry, we made a soup. It works. This is what truly excites me about cooking because it causes you to think in analogy. It gives you an encyclopedic knowledge of food, but really most of the time you're just improvising and flying by the seat of your pants. There's no bigger flex than you cooking a meal for somebody and them asking, oh hey, can I have the recipe for that? That was really good. And you're like, I didn't use a recipe. This is a function-first approach to food. You have these ingredients, you understand their function, and now you can kind of play around which techniques you want to apply to them to create a recipe that is unique to you. There are guardrails, and I'd be a little careful because not every ingredient, actually most ingredients don't go together. So I try to employ 2 methods. One, Simpler is best because there's less margin for error. And 2, I use cuisines as guardrails. So for example, if I have a bunch of Italian aromatics, I'll pick Italian meats and I'll pick Italian finishing ingredients. If I'm cooking Thai, I'll do Thai aromatics, Thai meats, and Thai ingredients, and possibly Thai techniques. There are, however, some interesting crossovers you can do with the technique. I used to work in restaurants and I'd see the chefs thinking about food in a very similar way, because at that point, they're managing inventory of ingredients. They can't let stuff go bad because that is bad for the business, much like you are managing a fridge. You're managing your own inventory. And you can't let stuff go bad because that's money wasted on your part. So using this creative function first method solves that problem. Because real food was never built on a culture of spectacle, but a culture of resourcefulness. General patterns are in every single technique and recipe. It's just for us to recognize them.
So is spending $117 on a recipe worth it? Oh, hell yeah, 100%. You just gotta make it worth it.